Hello, it's Vanessa back from Solar Motive again with another video where I jump on a video and discuss a transformation topic of the day. And today I wanted to discuss the topic of joy because it's a wonderful subject to cover, and it's something that many people are trying to tap into more and more these days when the world is going in a different direction, and we can see that just around us, within our institutions, corporations, where they introduce well-being programs, and they just want to be included in a collective effort to increase people's happiness and joy. But I wanted to create this video to give you my perspective of how I tap into that state of joy. So, as many of you know, who've been following my YouTube channel under Vanessa Poulian, that I cover various topics, and I'll just choose a topic and jump on and chat about it, totally unplanned or unscripted. So I just talk and hope for the best. And I just want to give you my perspective on how I achieve joy on a daily basis. Now, it's not a case of like pushing yourself to achieve that state, because if you're not in that state and you are in a completely opposite state, so let's say you're going through grief or you're in a fear-based state, so the opposite end of the spectrum, because we have a spectrum of emotions, and joy being on one end, and like fear, grief, etc., the more what we call unfavourable, in inverted commas, emotions on the other end. Doesn't mean any are really good or bad, although society likes to label one good and one bad, but really they're just emotions that are there to alert us of what's happening within us. So we are very grateful that we get to experience these emotions, because it's all part of the human experience, to actually feel a range of all those different emotions on the spectrum. And, I think the majority of us have felt the majority of those emotions on the spectrum at some stage of their life. So we're not immune to it. I wanted to discuss joy because how I go about feeling joy in my life is basically to tap into my own heart and soul and feel what what gives me the most fulfillment. And when I complete a task, assignment, or whatever it may be in my job, or a project, or even just an activity of any kind, is being mindful of which activity gives me the most joy, and then taking steps to do as much of that activity or all the activities that give me joy as possible. Now, I know this sometimes can sound a little bit not feasible in people's situations in life, because they have, as I've mentioned before, practically we've got our bills to pay, mortgages, family to uphold and upkeep. And it's important that, we don't ignore those responsibilities. They're there. And, we've got to be realistic about when we're making plans to develop ourselves, that we still need to take into account that who's around us. We can't just switch it off and, forget about it, because it's just part of our life. Those people surrounding us, all those situations are part of our life. So it's finding a balance, and that's what I'm all about in my coaching. I want to find a balance for people, what's realistic, and truly tap into you so that you can have more awareness in what is right for you in your life, because that's how you achieve true contentment, is really tapping into yourself And, we're not immune to looking around us and seeing what's going on and what other people are doing. And it's not to say you ignore that completely. I know there's advice out there saying, don't care about what people think. Don't look at what other people are doing. But we just naturally do that anyway. I'm just being realistic about it. It's more about, yes, we accept other people doing X, Y, Z, and we might learn from what other people are doing. So we don't completely discount their success and their achievements, but what we can do is see what they're doing and learn from it. And that's how I operate is, I don't spend all my day looking what other people are doing, but now and again I might receive some information through some means that someone else has achieved X, Y, Z, and I'm thinking, oh, that's something that actually resonates with me. So I may perhaps take those steps to, the steps that they have taken. If I know the person, I might ask them, oh, how did you achieve X, Y, Z? And, they may or may not give me the information. But either way, we still are interactive creatures. We do have people around us. And to not care about what other people are doing and what they think, I think that's a myth, because we all do care. We all care on some level what other people think of us. Now, how we deal with all that is taking the best parts of what you see around you and bringing it into you if it resonates. And how you know it resonates is you practice awareness of what's happening and you tap into your emotions. How do you feel about it? And I've said this in other videos as well, is the mind is wonderful and it's great that we have a mind and a body and a soul and a spirit, or whatever you want to call it. But I think the emotion behind what we do can supersede what the mind is thinking, because, for example, when we're talking about joy and contentment, that is more of a feeling-based emotion. It's not like you can rationalize joy. You just either feel it or you don't. So just going back to that topic of joy is, yes, I do take into account what other people are doing and perhaps learn from things that resonate. But the majority of what I'm doing comes from within me. So it's me practicing awareness on a daily basis. And there's no rules to that either. There's not like you have to do 10 minutes a day. I do tend to use the 5-minute rule as a minimum. Like I want to at least do 5 minutes of it. And I tend to naturally do that anyway, just so that I make sure that I am reflecting and connecting to myself on a daily basis. So, because majority of us are working on autopilot, we don't have that space to sit and think, what are we doing? So we might be rushing from one thing to another, and it might actually not be very productive, and it might not actually be effective or right for us. So that's why I mentioned these 5 minutes at least, and depending on how much time you have, just to check in with yourself. And some people might not be able to get away from others, but we all have bathroom breaks. So if you need to go there and take that bathroom break just to reflect, then do it. I used to do that in IT. I used to take a bathroom break because I wasn't a smoker, and other smokers would go outside and have their break and their reflection time. But the rest of us, it's kind of like, you can go for a coffee break, but it was a bit of a strange culture where it was almost frowned upon to take a coffee break, but cigarette break was fine in certain companies that I worked for anyway. So yeah, take that time, check in with yourself, and raise awareness within yourself of what's going on. And if you want to spend a bit more time doing it, you can even try some exercises at home, like just journaling and writing down. And journaling doesn't have to be a long process. You could just write a few lines each day of what's happening. And when you get the chance to look back on it, you could just flick through like a journal or a notepad and just see what you've done. And you might actually need to revisit certain points that you wrote down and think to yourself, well, maybe I could embark upon that now because I have the space now, whereas back then I didn't have the space. So it's that raising awareness of what puts you in that state of joy, right? And you might not know yet what that is, or for some people they don't know at all. But perhaps you might need someone to assist you in that. So that's where I can come in. I can ask a series of questions with you and give you a bit of a push, not a heavy push, but a little nudge is the word, to get you in that space of reflection and what is truly best for you. So I mentioned, practicing awareness is one element of joy, but for me, once I gained that awareness, and it took perhaps a few years to fully understand that process fully on a holistic level, like looking at the bigger picture, once I knew which parts of my life in terms of activities and projects gave me that joy, then bang, I was in straight in there. And in my situation, as many of you know, I am a coach, so this is why I do these videos, but I'm also a musician as well. And I originally come from an IT background, which is very different to what I'm doing now. So, and that's the other thing. If you were to ask me, a while back, if, when I was working in IT, would I ever consider myself as a musician and actually engage in music professionally? And I would have said, no, it's not feasible. So it just shows, I'm an example to you that you can do things that like kickstart that process of feeling more contentment and more fulfillment and more joy. And, the other thing I wanted to mention, again, I'm all about being raw and realistic, is that none of us are going to be in a joy state all the time, right? It's just a realistic, and it's quite an obvious thing to say, but I do see a lot of it, especially on social media, about being happy, finding happiness, finding it. You don't ever find happiness. It has to come from within, which sounds, I know, very cliche, but it's a state of being that's already accessible. It's not something that you have to look for externally. And if people are looking externally for happiness through material things, well, nothing wrong with that. Nothing wrong if you like your Porsche, or whatever it is, or expensive home. There's nothing wrong with that at all. Everyone's got their own material possessions as well as emotional that make them feel good, and that's okay. But the question to ask is, if any of these things were taken away and you were just left with just you without this, would you still be feeling that joy? And this is why it's important to access what's within you and look at more non-material ways of feeling it. So for me, I'm a creative, and it's kind of a bit bizarre, but I've only just really discovered that in the past few years, that I'm a true creative. And I start to feel a little bit anxious when I'm not doing anything creative. So it's important for my own well-being to engage in creativity every day. So that's something for me. And I explored that through coaching with my own personal coach. So, I do definitely recommend coaching because it's definitely helped me in so many ways. So, So if you would like to get in touch because this video resonates, and you would like perhaps a sounding board like myself to help bring out more awareness into what's happening within you, and also to work through, like, for example, the key points that arise with regards to finding your joy. So, when we go into that work and then, you come up with some ideas, because it's all about you taking that accountability. A coach is not there to fix things for you. However, because I come from a consultancy background as well, I do have certain solutions I can provide. If I feel that they are relevant, I will provide certain, links and advice, etc. But ultimately, the decisions have to come from within you. And when you get good at that, then off you go. You can then learn from that experience, and it becomes a lot easier to make decisions as well. And making decisions on what gives you the most contentment in your life. So like I said, if any of this resonates with you, then you can get in touch. My email address is vanessa@soul-emotive.com, if that's a preferred method. And all my contact details are on my website, which is www.soul-emotive.com. And you can contact me on there via the contact form, or there's links to Facebook, Instagram, and I've given you my email address. There's a chat box on the website itself, so you can chat to me on there, and I'll get back to you as soon as my business is open again. And I think that's it. I've provided all the information that you require today. So yeah, I hope you enjoy this video, and I wish you all a fantastic day, and I hope to hear from some of you soon. And if you like my videos, feel free to subscribe as well on here. And it's free, as many of you know, to subscribe. And that's on an unlimited basis as far as I know. So yeah, I will stop here and wish you all a good day. Bye.